Hello and welcome to Discovering Your Own Immunity to Change. With us today speaking is Adriano Pianezzi. He's a leadership educator and change consultant. His work specializes in leading change and innovation by creating a space, physical and virtual, where people are empowered to build their future. His work as a practitioner is influenced by his 15-year career in the corporate world where he worked as a marketing manager and sales executive. Adriano's research focuses on large group methods, adaptive leadership, culture change, team dynamics, and change management. He has been teaching with Johns Hopkins Carey Business School since 2008, and he's a faculty member of the Leadership and Management School of the Foreign Service of the U.S. State Department. So let's please welcome Adriano to the session. Adriano, I'm going to switch over layout so you can start sharing your screen and the floor.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Melissa. I appreciate it. And I want to thank you for, letting me into this session. I want to thank also the Training Officer Consortium for allowing me to present to you today. I want to welcome you wherever you are in the world to this session about the immunity to change. This is an important topic, one that, I would like to touch on at a personal level. I mean, it's that time of the year again. We're getting closer to doing our long-held New Year resolution. And, we know very well that besides our optimism, whether we want to lose weight or improving our finances or our personal relationship, you know, those things will not be as easy to do. And this session is an attempt to bring some clarity into that mechanism. So let me share with you some ideas, which are the one that I want to share with you today about what is this mechanism that we have. Two researchers at Harvard, Bob Keegan and Lisa Lasko-Leahy, assumes that the sobering truth that that will normally hit us on February, that those New Year resolutions do not become reality, is not really that we're missing willpower or we're not sincere in our attempt, but that often our failure to meet our goals may be the results of an actual immune system that protect us from a fallout that can come from that change. And that is actually a little bit deeper and a change that might result in disappointment and shame. So let me clarify what I mean here. Let me share briefly what is the immunity to change as we move into this little time that we're spending together. I want to define it as a hidden immune system by which we tend to prevent change and manufacture continuously non-change. Now, I do know what you're thinking. Immunity, especially these days, is a very good thing, isn't it? I mean, it's protecting us, is something that is good. But what I am implicitly saying here is that sometimes our immunity protects us from the very change that we're actually trying to implement. Let me briefly share with you what I am planning to do in this time together. The first thing I want to give you, be more precise about what kind of change we're talking about, share with you a key assumption, share what are those blind spots or defenses that work against change, and then trying to map with you your own immunity to change. So I will ask you to enter stuff in the chat. I will ask you to do it quickly in the interest of time, but I also ask you to think for a moment about your answer. And hopefully, if you have any questions, we will have enough time to address them towards the end. So let me quickly share, when I'm talking about change, what kind of change am I talking about? So there are two ways I noticed to understand change. One is change as mastering a skill, so an outcome. So in other words, I don't know how to use Excel. I now learn Excel. At the end, I have changed in the sense that I have improved my performance. I'm now able to master a skill. There is another change, however, and a change that is of a different nature. So a change as I'm changing the way I make sense of myself. And this is what we normally call transformational change. I want to make sure that we're clear. I'm not saying that one is better than the other. I'm not saying that only adaptive change is the right change or the change that we should only focus our attention. There are a lot of issues that individuals deal with in which both are required. But I want to clarify that this change, the one I'm talking about today, is really adaptive change. So a change not so much in learning a skill, but more a change of mastering a skill, of changing the way we make sense of ourselves. So, in a sense, it's almost a process of how we understand the world. Now, um, we all are familiar with the fact that change is hard. And when we ask why it's hard, well, because normally when we want to bring about change, you need changes in individual behaviors. And in order to bring changes in behaviors, you need changes in the meaning that give rise to that behavior. And so, in my experience working with personal and organizational change, the truth is that especially in organizational change, it's very hard to ask people to change without you yourself being able to go through this process of changing your own meaning. So, change is hard. I think we can agree. And again, I'm talking here about adaptive change, not so much that change as a skill, change in the way we see the world, change in the way we make sense of reality. So, this is an absolutely key assumption that ground the work of Keegan and Leahy, and I will save you all the references and all the different kind of research that back this up. But what we are trying to say here, very simply, is that the truth is that we do not see reality. Each of us sees her of his own version of reality. In a sense, reality is constructed by each of us. And when I say constructed, I am not saying that reality does not exist. I'm not advocating here a fact free version of reality. I'm not saying that reality does not exist. I am simply saying that from a perceptual and cognitive level, each of us have not is constructing their reality within themselves. Is more than just construction, is really an active role in almost making it up. Now, that is more or less accurate, of course, and the fact that we are able to survive as a species shows that we are good in doing this work. But this is an important assumption because it's grounding a lot of the work that we are doing today. Now, there are two assumptions that come from this. Some people feel disappointed by something like this. Uh, what I am trying, what instead, I have to say I'm inspired because if reality is constructed and we have an active role in creating reality, it's evident that, we, it's kind of vain to look for absolute objectivity. So this brings us more humility in a sense. And also, I have to say, we give up on hopelessness because we realize that this open up a lot of possibility. The possibility, for instance, to construct a different kind of reality that makes sense. So, in a sense, we start become more aware of what is our contribution to the creation of reality and to the reality that we see. Now, I don't know if you've ever know the experiment of the blind spot. You take a piece of paper, you write an X on a side, and then you put a dot on the other side. You move it away from your eye, and at one point, the dot disappears. Now, it's more than the disappearance. It's really that the retina does not have a place where to put that dot. And so, not knowing what to do, it literally fill in the blank, putting an actual blank. So again, a simple example of how our own being human, in a sense, is a condition that has as an implicit capacity the one of constructing reality, is more than just perceiving. We are perceiving, and then with whatever we perceive, we construct. Many of you may be familiar with the Johari window, again, which is an attempt at a very high level. You divide this matrix 2 by 2, what is known by you, what is unknown by you, and then you say what is unknown to others and what is known to others. You identify those 4 different quadrants, and what I am trying to say here is that in creating this reality and through tools like the Johari window, we realize that there is a lot of stuff of reality that is not known to us, but is absolutely apparent to others. And I say more. It's not that we don't see it, but in some situation, we don't make sense of the world in a way that allow us to see it. So there is a more active role, in a sense, of what we are doing here. Is an active repression, is a real failure, in a sense, a distortion, a dismissal of information that doesn't fit into our existing way of seeing reality. Now, of course, we're not saying that all refusals are blind spots. We're not saying that, the lack of knowledge is a blind spot. But what we are trying to say here is that in some situation, the work of leadership development, and in my case, the tradition of Keegan and Leahy, is in the field of what is called adult development. This idea that children evolved, but also adult at different stages of psychological development, and that this development is rooted in this sense-making process of trying to make sense of what are those processes of dismissal, failure, or repression of reality. Let me, for a moment, stop at this point, because what I want to clarify is that what I have said up to this point is why we need the immunity to change and why the immunity to change is important. Why these things happen? Why this thing of repressing, failing to see, distort reality or dismiss reality happen? Um, um, we need to understand a bit more about that process in order to become better at avoiding those kind of processes. And so the immunity to change is based on the idea that often we have a natural interest in not experiencing reality as is, when reality is a threat to a self-concept or an identity. The typical situation is dealing with, for instance, a completely different point of view than ours. Or we normally tend to dismiss idea that, may not fit what we already know, but more importantly, we might be unaware of the self-defenses process that tend us to protect us from those different ideas. And so, in a sense, the immunity is an attempt, almost like an X-ray machine, to see what are those other things that lay hidden behind it as competing commitments or big assumption that inadvertently defend us against change. I want to say that, at this point, again, as I said earlier, the immunity to change is nothing but a system by which we tend to prevent change and manufacture non-change through this sense of what we call competing commitment and big assumption. So the process I would like to lead you through is the one of mapping your own immunity to change. So in a sense, to explore what is this immunity in action, so that we can gain a deeper level of understanding of how we protect ourselves, sometimes from the very change that we're trying to implement. So let me stop for a moment and see if there are any major questions that people would like to have answers, or either clarification or anything that is unclear. Chris is telling me so far so good. Let me get some feedback from the audience. I'm used to have everybody on video, so I have very hard time just getting a sense from you as the audience if what I have shared as it's clear up to this point. So what we have talked about, so that um, is the idea that there are two kinds of change, and that today what we are covering is more the adaptive change. So the way change as a way to change how we make sense of ourselves, and the idea that there is a change in meaning, which is the adaptive change, and the assumption that we don't see reality as is, but that we often construct a map. And that in constructing that map, we have several blind spots, and that those blind spots sometimes distort reality or may protect us as self-defenses from the reality we're trying to understand. So let's see if there is any other major question at this point. And I was wondering, as we are talking about change, for me, one of the purpose of today is to, in a sense, lead you in this kind of mini self-exploration. So I would like to uh, kind of ask your help in building this self-exploration, just answering some of the question, because in the process of the immunity to change, which of course is a much larger process than an hour, we actually explore those different ideas at very different level. And we have, a set of questions that we ask and that go through one by one to actually uncover a better understanding of reality. So let me start this process with you. And I want to make sure that you know that this is, a process in which you are uncovering some kind of competing commitment or big assumption. So I want to share with you, what do I mean for competing commitment, for example. And we will do it with specific examples from the one that we will go through the um, immunity to change. So the first thing I would like to ask you, and this is a real question, it's not a hypothetical question. I want to ask you, what is your New Year resolution? What is something great that you want to accomplish in your life? You have a chat area. I ask you that you answer that question at this point in the chat area. There is a something great area in the main screen that you can see. We would like for you to type something great. It could be anything. I want to write a book, or I want to, raise a family, or I want to go to the moon, or I want to be less angry, or I want to be better at writing. I mean, whatever great is happening that you want to accomplish, pay off debt. Perfectly fine, Yolanda. Uh, it could be really whatever. I want to give you a moment to actually think about what could be some big goal, something great that you want to accomplish in your life. And it might be, becoming an entrepreneur. It could be, I don't know, a trip to Tahiti, or it could be, right, Trina, that's right, traveling. That's pretty good. And all sorts of large, big things that we're trying to accomplish in our life. We're a complex human being. We have several objectives. We want to, buy a retirement condo. That I assume that's buying, Adele. We want to exercise regularly. Um, we want learn to listen more. Absolutely. You want to learn to delegate more, or maybe you want to lose weight. That's perfectly fine. Well, uh, that's right. Absolutely. That would be another great one. Absolutely. Why not? And that is another one that really, really can help, isn't it? So build a retirement home in the mountains. Absolutely. Those are all great, awesome New Year goal. Step foot on all seven continents. So traveling. Perfect. Perfect. So those are great things that we are up to. Now, here is where this, I let Bert typing, and then I would like to ask a follow-up question to this one. And there will be a series of 5 questions that we will go through from now until later, when we will actually, through those answers, define our own immunity. Now, of course, whatever you want to share is completely up to you, but I ask that you follow my line of reasoning as an attempt to identify the value of these materials, which I have found to be very, very effective in identifying and solving problems, especially the one where you feel stuck. So we want to influence the divisiveness of the country. Fantastic, Bert. Thank you. So uh, those are all awesome, awesome New Year's resolution, and I really hope that the new year will bring you the wisdom and the ability to actually accomplish many of those things. So here's what I would like to do, and I ask Melissa maybe to open the second chat, and this is a kind of a different question in a sense. Given what you need to become, your awesome goal, what is it that you need to become better at today so that in a year you can accomplish that goal? So I give you an example. If I want to lose weight, what do I need to become better at today, so that I accomplish that goal? Well, I need to become better at not eating the donut, for example, every morning. Or I know that that's where as McKinsey has it, those are the 3 horizons of growth. In reality, we are developing our long term as a single short term decision. And the short term decision on not eating the donut is what will bring me to the long term of losing the weight. So, what am I doing today? So this is again all about me. It's not about an outcome. It's not about having money. Let's say that I want to be an entrepreneur or buying a condo or travel a lot. What do I need to become better today so that I can travel, so that I can buy a condo, so that I can become, a I need to decrease discretionary spending, Yolanda. Awesome. Very specifically, I need not to buy that or not to buy this, correct? Or I need to expand my marketing and network skills. I need to become better. Absolutely, Jeff. Absolutely. You're totally there. I need to become better at financial management. I need to learn to set boundaries, Isabel. Absolutely. Or I need to get better at saving money. That's right. Or I need to decide, I need to stick to it. I need to enforce my own limit. If I say something, I need to do it. That is great. But what is it that you need to become better today? Is it your own account guarding yourself? There is an assumption there that everything is done because you're not good enough. Could be that there are many other reasons why. So empathizing with those that are polar. So I need to become better at being more empathic. Oh, very nice. Or I need to become better to say no or when to stop working. Absolutely. This is another absolutely very, very important goal that we want to accomplish. I need to become better at finish what I start. Absolutely, Katharina. And that is really what we're trying to do here. Get better at saving money, so saving more. So do something specific. So my goal when in this kind of process, um, at this point is very, very important because the goal that you have identified for yourself, I am sure, is a goal that you care deeply about. And a goal that that you would be very proud to share with others. Now, there are other goals that may not be as we may not be as vociferous or vocal in sharing with others, but those are awesome goals, everything that you say. Become better at identifying my client needs, so understanding my client better in whatever is the way. I need to plan more. I need to save money. I need to become better at what? Um, completing the task is the output, Katrina, but what is the actual thing, that the skill that you need to actually being able to complete the task? It could be not watch TV, you know what I'm saying? Or it could be not having so many distractions. I mean, it's a deeper understanding of what is the goal. Okay, but that's great. So now, out of this, and now I'm asking the second question. Think about your answer. Of course, I don't have a look at your answer, and maybe we can go to question two. Now, inevitably, and I'm not saying in this that is all your fault, but I'm just saying that if we were to make a list of why you're unable to accomplish the goal, I'm sure that your name will be in that list. So, what is it that we normally do or don't do against that goal? So, I give you my own example. I wanted to lose weight, but what is it that I do or don't do against that goal? Well, guess what? You hear from my accent, I'm originally from Italy. On Sunday, I might go to my parents and eat so much pasta. Oh my gosh, 2 plates of tagliatelle, and there is no end in sight about what I eat. So even if I have a beautiful goal of, losing weight, guess what happening too? When it comes to Sunday, I don't resist 2 or 3 full serving of tagliatelle with sauce. So, what is it that gets in the way? So, what is that you do or don't do? Now, this should be like a camera watching you. A camera watching you and seeing you do or don't do something. So let's see. What is it that you do or don't do against that goal? So you want to complete the task, for example. What is it? A camera is there while you are not completing the task. So let's write in question 2 in the derailer chat. What is it that we do instead? Or I want to decide to stop working, and instead, look at that. What happened? What is it that this camera will take? What is it that I do or don't do against that goal? What is totally against that official goal? Now, I'm not at all suggesting that it's all your fault, but we are simply trying to understand what end up happening in some situation, considering that we are, very much about doing those things, and we want to understand the reason. Sometimes, even if I say I want to be on a tight budget, I spend money impulsively. That's right. Adele is sharing that information with us. That's or I pick up the phone and I get re-engaged even into the evening rather than dropping the phone. That's right. And what else? What else I do? For instance, let's say I want to lose weight, but guess what? Sunday comes, the big plate of pasta shows up in front of me. I ate 2 servings, so 3 servings. Um, all or nothing. It's easier. You're just describing, Isabella. What I really would like for you to describe is more something that a camera would actually, the camera would take you do what? That's what I would like to understand. What would be the thing that the camera will surprise you doing against that goal? Lack of discipline is an analysis, is not really, Diane, what you are actually doing. What I'm asking is, what would this camera show you do instead? Or doing. So picking up the phone and getting re-engaged is a perfect example. Here's a camera with the movie of Janet picking up the phone again and getting re-engaged. Or even my picture of myself eating those 2-3 big plates of pasta. So I use the credit card I'm working to pay off, so I use it again, isn't it? I use the credit card again. That's a perfect example. Or what else? I don't know. I said I don't want to spend time in the office, and here is 12 o'clock. I'm still in the office. Or this is not easy because you have to think about something that you do, maybe inadvertently, maybe willingly, but something that you do against your goal. So it's not an easy thing to actually think. So go ahead. Let me give you another moment before we move. That's right. I agree, Denise. But the point is, what is it that the problem is? I'm not debating that. The truth is, we have to actually be aligned with our goal. If our goal is to lose weight, there is no alignment. But I don't discuss the tagliatelle fatte in casa is really good. I would agree with that. Saying yes when I don't have the time. That's right. That's right. That's perfect. Or here is me saying yes when I don't have time. Here is me spending the credit card. So I don't make let's be specific. What is the specific thing? The specific thing that the camera would get you do in that very moment. I'll give you another second to answer this. This is essential for the process of identify the immunity. So I want to remind you, you have a goal, a beautiful goal, could be travel more, become financially independent. What do you do against that goal? And this is what we are identifying, something that you're going against that goal. So let's say I want to lose weight, but guess what? Here comes the moment and I'm eating a lot of pasta. All right. So this is what I do or don't do against the goal. Now, how do 90% of change initiative or change philosophies work? They shrink the tumor of number 2. They say, we're being naughty. We are not being acting properly. We are being bad. We are not following up on our goal. We're bad. And that is really pretty much where a lot of the change concept and initiative go to die. We should be doing this. We don't do it. Let's stop doing it. I don't smoke. I'm smoking. Let me stop smoking. So this kind of understanding. I'm not saying that this is bad, but I'm saying that we can learn much, much more if we consider column the number 2 rather than something bad as an expression of another commitment. Why? Because we're complex people. We don't have just one goal in life. We're complex people. We are up to many, many things. We are in a complex world that we try to make sense. So what I want you to identify is something a little deeper. So for example, if you were not to do what you describe in number 3, so for example, if I were not to eat those 2 plates of pasta at my parents' on Sunday, or if I were not to spend by impulse using that same credit card that I was using before, if I were not saying yes through the night to the requests that come, what fear would come up for me? Now, for me, the fear that would come up is that if I were not to eat that pasta, my parents would not be happy. I mean, they would actually say, what the heck? We invited you for dinner. It's kind of, the fear is that I would offend my parents, very simply. And offending my parents is something I don't want to do. So what if you were not to do the derailer, what fear would come up for you? If you were not to do fear of failure, maybe, isn't it? And now I'm not at all suggesting that this is all driven by your fear. I'm not at all, because this is much bigger than that. But I'm trying to think. Right, I would have a fear of missing out what I consider a good purchase. That's right. And or I would be, I would not be able to be invited again. Or, that's my fear. That's something that for me is also important at a larger organizational level. It could be, for example, in the fear of doing something that is not right. So again, fear of disappointment. So fear of missing an opportunity. I may be actually not really sure of what that is, but I know that if I do that thing on column 2, I don't do it because I'm crazy. I do it because I don't want something else to happen. So in a sense, what we are saying here is that when you have a certain worry, that worry is an expression maybe of something bigger that goes on in your life. We are saying, in other words, that yes, you do have a goal and you want to become better at something. But guess what? You do the opposite And that opposite is an expression of a fear of something, which is in itself an expression of another commitment that is implied in your previous answer. For example, I give you an example very quickly. If I'm trying to lose weight, but on Sunday I eat 3 plates of pasta, and my fear is not to offend my parents, guess what? My hidden commitment implies in my previous answer is that I don't want to offend my parent. Why? Because I'm committed to keep my Italian identity. So my Italian identity, which I have identified in 4, keep me, in a sense, stuck on not being able to lose weight. Now, I am not saying that this is right. I'm not saying that this is wrong. I'm not saying that this is actually a way to solve the problem. This is simply a way to see the problem better. And that is a key concept of the immunity to change. What is the worry that would come up for you? And if you are honest about that worry, you realize that that worry expresses another commitment that is implied. Now, those are not the kind of commitments they were very proud, like the first one. All of you told me you wanted to have a beautiful commitment, for instance, to travel, or a great commitment to actually being able to pay off your debt. Now, these are kind of very different commitments. They're not commitment that we're very proud of, they're hidden, and they're normally as a self-protection. So it's more like we're trying to avoid some trouble, something like that, more than creating something great. So it's more, I want to avoid lose my job, or I want to avoid missing out opportunity in my life, or I want to keep my freedom. I want to be seen as competent. I mean, they are kind of commitment that we are not very keen to share. And that's the reason why I didn't let you share this commitment in the chat, because, it's very personal. It could be that you want to protect yourself, or you want to experience life at its fullest, and you want to just enjoy life. The commitment of enjoying life is clearly a competing commitment with the commitment, for example, of wanting to paying your debit card, credit card debt. So those two competing commitments are one against the other. Now, this is not to say that one is right and one is wrong. This is to say we are just identifying the hidden dynamic that is driving this whole process. And if we were to do this analysis a little deeper, we would actually easily identify that there is a very special reason why the credit card debt doesn't go down. And that reason is not that we're not good at spending, but is that we are also committed, for example, to a good life, or to having what we want to have, or to pleasure, or to other things. And those two commitments, they work as countering each other. And so in a sense, it's almost like a car with the accelerator, the foot on the accelerator and the foot on the brake. There is great energy in the system, but the car doesn't move. Clearly, what we are identifying here is simply the opposing forces that create the status quo. Until we do understand what is that hidden commitment on the other side, is going to be very hard for us to manufacture the change that we want. Now, what is the next step in this process? And I will go through this very quickly. The reality is, yes, is definitely tied to mindset and hit. Absolutely, absolutely. Remember, is what I said at the beginning. And at the beginning, when I talk about this work, I talked about the fact that this is active repression, distortion, dismissal. It's not that the other commitment is not clear to us. We can easily map it, we can easily identify it, but when we have to deal with both commitments, that's a different story. We need to have a hidden definition, and so a hidden understanding. So, what is the last step in the immunity? I am sure that if we identify this commitment, I want to remind you my immunity map. I was committed to lose weight. I was eating 3 plates of pasta on a Sunday instead. I am committed, the fear was to offend my parents. And in 4, my commitment is clearly to keep my Italian identity. Now, this is a self-protection as an immigrant to try to keep your own identity. It's not something I may be very proud to share publicly. But if I go very deep and I really go into the reason why this is there, the commitment to my Italian identity in some way is interfering with my commitment to lose weight. Now, here is the last step in the immunity, and then I let you ask your question. How, if I were not committed to my Italian identity, what would be the terrible thing that would happen to me? If I were not being committed to my Italian identity, what would be the terrible thing that would happen to me? Well, I've done this exercise for the last 15 years with several organizations all over the world, several individuals. Well, the answer are very dramatic and they're very consequential. Interestingly enough, those are assumptions. They're big assumptions, but the truth is the assumption hold us. We don't hold the assumption. We are so clear and straight to identify this that is not even an assumption. It's a fact of life. If I were to lose my Italian identity, I would be lost, or I would not know who I am, or if I were not being committed to my hidden commitment, I will lose my job. I will be left alone. I would not be able to survive. I will sleep under the bridge. I will be left alone. I will be punished. Those are assumptions. I want to repeat. Those are assumptions. They are not reality. And yet, in the immunity to change work, you identify this assumption as something that you treat as reality. And this is the value of this exercise. Now, I know those of you that now have, a basic understanding of this process, you want to start identifying all sorts of commitment and assumption. Now, I want to warn you that once you identify an assumption, you don't destroy it or kill it. You try to study it. You try to understand it through a process that takes, some experimentation and a mindset of design. You design an experiment to test that assumption. Now, I want to give you an example of somebody that went through this process. And let me see if I can share this with you. So this is the sequence for I want to be a collaborative leader. But instead, and this is the second, I take charge of every meetings. I do the agenda without input from others. And if I were not to do that, I will worry that I waste time and act ineffective manager. Now, my hidden commitment is that I'm committed to not waste time and be seen as effective by other departments, to be seen as productive. What is my big assumption? If I am not seen as productive, I will lose my job. Now, notice that if I want to be a collaborative leader, it's going to be really hard for me to become one if I continue to be committed to not waste time for my team, and if I am not aware of the fact that I don't just want to be a collaborative leader, I also want to be seen as productive. And those two commitments coming together create the trouble. And until I uncover that my big assumption is just an assumption, and until I understand that my big assumption needs to be studied and understood better, I have no way to become a collaborative leader. Let me give you the second example. I want to be a team player, but instead, I don't collaborate enough. Yes, this slide will be made available, Lisa. Yes, they will. So I don't collaborate enough. I make unilateral decisions. If I were not to make unilateral decisions, if I were to actually collaborate, I will not get credit for my work. I will have fights with my team members. So I want to be a team player, but I have also another commitment to get credit for my work. That's right. And here is another element here. This hidden commitment is rooted in the assumption that if I am not getting credit, Bad things will happen to me. Again, this is an assumption. This is not a reality, an assumption that all does. Let me talk about another example. Lisa, she wants to turn around her department. Instead, she let some things slide. She doesn't take many risks. She's not proactive. And so, why? Well, she worried that if she starts, she would not know how to proceed and she will look incompetent. So Lisa wants to turn out her department, but she's also want to be seen as competent. Two commitments plague Lisa: turning around her department and be seen as competent. Very hard to do both at the same time. And so if you want to do that, you have very hard time. And until Lisa study her assumption of that if she's not seen as competent, she will lose her job, it's going to be very hard for her to turn around her department. My last example is an example at the organizational level. In my work in organizational change, I often work with organization. After we have actually identified the immunity for individuals, we work to identify a larger immunity, which is an immunity that organizational carry with them. Why is this important? Because often organization, as you know, I mean, it's almost a something that everybody say, the culture is strategy for dinner. And a lot of my work sometimes is in diagnosing what element of our culture prevents our strategy to be executed. And here is an example. This is an organization that is committed to innovation and creativity, like many organizations out there. But instead, this organization, against that commitment, take any risk, discourage experimentation, and don't try new things. Now, why that's the case? It's not because they're bad. It's not because they're committed. It's not real. But it's because they want to avoid. They were worried that if they were to be committed to innovation and creativity, they would be many mistakes along the way and be seen as incompetent. So they want to be innovative and creative, but they also have a strong commitment to not making mistakes. Now, you will agree with me that to be creative and innovative without making mistakes is a really tough situation. And that situation will not change no matter the amount of training. You need to have a better understanding. And the understanding need to be an understanding that goes through the understanding of your big assumption. Making mistake is bad for our reputation and will destroy our credibility. This is not a fact. This is an assumption that might or might not be true. The work on the immunity to change is to try to shed light on those hidden commitment and big assumption as expression of your possible change. I want to give you a moment to ask question either on the phone. I don't know if we can provide people microphone rights, Melissa, but at this point, I would be happy to actually answer any questions you might have.
No, we're in listen only mode, so please, if you have any questions, please type it in the main chat there on the left-hand side of the screen.
Thank you, Melissa. So your questions about the immunity. Well, the way to uncover your hidden commitment is to go through the process as we just did. Of course, we are doing it at a very fast level. We're not going really very, very quickly. But, it's a process that takes some time, but it is extremely effective in identifying those hidden commitment and big assumption. The critical element in this conversation is not so much about I am right or I'm wrong, or I'm not doing good or I'm not doing well, but to approach the entire conversation with the spirit of exploration, to try to be very honest and to go really deeper. Of course, we are moving at a speed of light. Melissa told me to be staying in the time, and that's what I'm trying to do. This process, of course, is much richer and much larger. But I hope you can appreciate the power that you bring to the conversation, because testing big assumption, as Adele is pointing out, is really the next step. how can I actually make sure and create evidence in a safe environment where it's not true that, for instance, making mistake is bad for reputation and destroy our credibility? The testing of the big assumption is that actually what happened after you diagnose the immunity, and is really in a spirit of designing, is an attempt to create experience that can shed light and give you more clarity about what those commitment and assumption are. But I appreciate the question, Adele, very, very much. Let me see if there are other questions. The testing of the big assumption is normally done, creating situation where you put yourself and study yourself to actually see yourself in action. I want to go to my parents maybe on a Sunday, and this time trying to have a conversation with them and tell them, look, I need to lose this weight for this and this reason. Would that be okay if I just eat one plate instead of three? Now, I'm trying to keep this as simple as possible, but you understand what I'm trying to say. It's a matter of designing experiments so that I can test that assumption in action. Let me see if there are other questions here. Again, this old body of knowledge would not make any sense if we don't start from the assumption that we talked earlier, that we construct reality. That reality is not something that is out there independent of us. We create assumption, and our way to see reality is actually in itself an assumption about reality. So, Melissa, what shall we do with the,
Well,
with the next
perhaps we
5
can.
minutes?
You could show them that wonderful worksheet that you're going to provide them for download. That might actually help with some of these questions.
Thank you. Good idea. Thank you very much. Why don't we go into that page? So this is the actual page of the immunity map worksheet. Comes straight from the Harvard School of Education. You see, you might recognize here question 1 was the question that I asked you. What do you need to become better at today? So this will be column 1. Column 2 is what I do, what I don't do when I ask you the question in the second chat. The 3 would be the worry box. So what would I be worried if that is actually happening? And then 4th would be, I may also be committed to, and this would be the 4th one. And then finally, number 5, 4 in this map, the assumption that, there may be a big assumption at play that is actually preventing me to moving into change. Thank you, Melissa. I think it was a good idea. This module is available for your handouts together with the slideshow. It will be shared with you. Now, I just want to quickly say, if you want to build a retirement home or you want to travel, and your answer was, I need to be better at making money, for example, maybe that's not a good goal. Maybe the better goal is, how can I become more employable? Or how can I be better at networking so that I can find another job, So the work that we did at the beginning is absolutely essential to arrive to a powerful outcome. And so I want to apologize in advance if the question and the time that we put on identified your improvement goal was, substandard, but we really did not have enough time to actually go much deeper into the conversation. In conclusion, what is the bottom line? What I want everybody to remember is that the immunity to change is a process that delivers a very valuable exploration of personal or collective forces for non-change. And the importance of mapping is that it allows you to generate insight about why the status quo doesn't change. And of course, allow you to diagnose what is and what needs to be the work so that your change at the personal or organizational level has more chance to succeed.